experts we have across verticals across regions.
Hello all, I'm Pradeep Kumar. I'm working on a startup for improving the working capital management of MSMEs. I've developed the model. I'm working on improving the accuracy of the model, but I have now sufficient data to work on, okay, and prove results. So, in a way, that's a startup. The other things, the formalities are still remaining, but the concept is ready. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Mithilesh. I founded ContraFab Solutions like 45 days back. It is a B2B startup, right? So what it does is, it is a end-to-end construction, trade and fabrication company, right? So I think everybody is known to Amazon, Flipkart, right? So maximum ticket size there is a lakh of rupees of products or your iPhones and all of these, right? So I deal into the B2B stuff, industrial stuff, your steel, your cements, your oils, your chemicals, your polymers, you name it, we'll deliver it to you. So your Tatas, your Jindals, your sales, your PSUs, we establish MOUs with these companies and we give it to the contractors or the government PSUs who are in need of it, right? That is one part, and also the execution part also. Say suppose you are a pharma company, right? The main thing which you need today are boilers, where you mix your ingredients, make tablets. So I manufacture or fabricate the entire boiler for you. So right from procurement, it is a value addition of making a boiler for you. So that's just industry specific. So you say steel, we have bridges in railways, your roadways, your buildings, whatnot, pre-engineered buildings. So it's a high ticket size game. So you're talking about a commodity of 25 lakh as the smallest ticket which we can operate with. So we've hit last month of 500 tons and this month we're doing 1,000, closing to 1,000. So probably the company's website and the company will be live in the next 1 week. Designs are finalized and it's in the process of transaction. So I'm mainly here to understand. So I've been through the business side. I've been in the startup industry for the last 6-7 years, right? I've been part of $2 billion startups and founders also. So that's where my inspiration comes from, but I lack in the financial knowledge of it, right? So everything seems fancy, the valuation, the investors part of it, the pitch decks, but when you are in the opposite side of the shoes, right, you always feel you've not learned enough to portray yourself better. So this is actually, I hate seminars, I hate connecting with people, but for my baby I have to do it. Like ContraFab is like my second child after my first. So I wanted to succeed. So I've come out of my that secluded space to come and interact with people and see what is going on in the structure. That's about it. I think I've taken a lot of time. Next.
Yeah. So hi guys. So this is Harsha. Might be very younger than you people. So well, I'm a final year college student from Mallaradi Engineering College. I'm working on building 2 companies right now, which was an Exenexis. It's completely based student come working professionals community. We help them. We help students and working professionals to connect together. We organize events. We help them different companies and different events, different tech or any non-technical events as an outreach partners. So we help to get reach to exact niche people to the events, and also I'm working on new AI stuff as well. So working on AI stuff, and I was pretty interested in businesses and startups. So that's why I'm just here to explore about the financial part, because as our community doesn't need much financial support, but as we are working on the startup space and business space, if I need to explain about new people for the new like college students or the budding entrepreneurs, this should be a phase like I should be giving some answers for them, so I can suggest something, the financial part for them. So that's why I'm here. And the second company which I'm recently started like 2 or 3 months back was like, it's called Goldman Media. I work on media production. We help the corporate events to media production. We help them in like creating content from the scratch to the end of the end of the event. So that's all about the Goldman Media. And he's my team member. He usually works with different. He's majorly focusing on Web3. So that's all.
I'm Ishosai and I'm a Web3 student right now. I'm in learning stage. My first
He's
year
going to be first year right now. I'm fourth year, but he's like very younger than me. So that's how we build a team of people, like-minded people. How we build something creatively.
So hi everyone, my name is Shravan. I'm here to represent Hyderabad. We majorly focus on startups and SMEs in helping with hiring solutions. Whether it's a mid-level company, MNC or a startup, hiring always comes with a cost. There's a lot of keen scrutiny. Even after a complete keen scrutiny, there is no 7% guarantee that hired candidate, hired resource will be a right fitment for the job or not. So this is where we want to make a change. We have a bench resource and we have a recruitment firm. So for whatever the startups which are approaching the company for resource hiring, for bench resource, it's completely free of cost. We have multiple stacks involved. We have design students, we have candidates from development, we have testing engineers, we have data analysts, we have SEO, digital marketing. So we are widespread into the tech industry. We have candidates from multiple stacks, and this all bench resources that we are allocating to the companies is all free. It's a zero-cost hiring solution that we are giving startups.
My name is Kumar Chakravarti. After 20 years in academics, I'm just starting up in finance and fintechs. I'll be completing my diploma in finance and fintechs by August 31st. So I'm going to learn more with 300 other friends, which we have many of them.
Can I use Hindi? एक्चुअली मेरा मदर टंग तेलुगु है, लेकिन इंग्लिश से थोड़ा अच्छा कंफर्ट मुझे हिंदी में महसूस होता है. मैं एक्चुअली टैली सॉफ्टवेयर का सेल्स सर्विसिंग सपोर्ट देखता था. कुछ साल पहले मैं कोलैप्स बिजनेसमैन था. अभी मैं स्ट्रगल कर रहा हूँ सेटअप होने में. अभी फिलहाल मैं ऑनलाइन में मार्केटिंग करके आयुर्वेदिक प्रोडक्ट्स सेल करता हूँ. लीड्स आते हैं, उनको मैं सर्व करता हूँ, पोस्ट कर देता हूँ. और मेरा ड्रीम यही है सॉफ्टवेयर इंडस्ट्री में मेरा नाम एक हाईएस्ट गोल है सर. मिनिमम 1000 पीपल का यूनिट लगा के सॉफ्टवेयर सर्व करना है ऑल इंडिया. ये मेरा ड्रीम गोल है. तो उसी हिसाब से ऐसे जो भी इवेंट्स आते हैं कोशिश करता हूँ महीने में या 2 महीने में एक इवेंट अटेंड करूँ. लाइक मैंने पीपल से मिलूँ, एक नया सेगमेंट्स को मैं एस्टैब्लिश करूँ. ये सारे मेरे इच्छा होती है. तो मैं इधर आ गया आज. मेरा नाम चंद्रशेखर.
Nice to meet all of you. I'm Tarun, by the way. For those who don't know, I'm the founder of CoKarma. I started this company along with my wife Ekta, who is along with me here. Can you have a round of applause? It's coming, we've probably done close to about 300 events. It's coming, this is our second event probably. So yeah, that is a round of applause. What we have today is an expert talk from people who have flown from Mumbai. So we have Aditi, we have Ronak, we have Pratik, and we have Ketan, who are going to share their experience on various aspects of finance. Whether it be valuation, whether it be virtual CFO services, or whether it be basic things that you would want to know as a startup or a founder. Right? So all that will be covered today, in a brief session. And later on, there will be a chance for you to ask them questions. You can sort of network with them, and you can sort of get a cue from them, and then sort of connect as well. Right? So the idea today is to start something for you guys, right? That helps you. So we're trying to establish that today, all right? We'll let them introduce themselves. I think there were a couple of more people we have missed out on introductions. So we'll finish that and then we'll quickly come on to them.
Hello everyone. I'm Venkatesh. I'm a senior accountant from Careerpedia. So Careerpedia is a platform. It's a regulated platform. Through the platform, we are offering, we are upskilling the students from various technical courses like testing, development, UX designing, and digital marketing. Actually, we started our product in 2022. We developed in 6 months. We are completely in operation last financial year. Last financial year from June. From June to this month, end of the financial year, we generate 7 CR. And this financial year, this coming five months, we generate 10 CR. So the thing is, we're planning for that fundraising, so that as an accountant, I need to upskill myself in financial modeling and fundraising things. That's why I'm representing behalf of Careerpedia.
Careerpedia, by the way, has 240 seats with us at this branch.
Yeah. We started from 2 seats, and today we have around we have 2 branches in one in Madhapur and one in Kondapur. We have around 400 seater capacity.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, Shivakumar. I own a LLB company, Security Infra Technologies. I'm into real estate digital marketing. So, previous background, I've been to stock broking and mutual fund distribution. Parallelly, I'm managing this.
Okay, we'll let you guys introduce yourselves. So why don't you start, Prateek, and then we'll just do the introductions and then start the sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, hi everyone, I am Prateek. Basically, we started as CoKarma in Mumbai and we work close to 200 plus startups across India. Right now, we have a team strength of about 100 plus people, and our main focus is to provide CFO services, wherein your CA, CS, legal work, any kind of those stuff which you face challenges is basically what we help solutions with. So we started with Mumbai, then we expanded to Bangalore, and now we are planning to do something in Hyderabad. So I've always heard Hyderabad people are very nice. This is my Naniyal, by the way. So I've spent almost all my summers here. So this is like a good option for me. And these are my team members.
Hi, so myself Ronak, I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and Pratik is my partner. So all this 13 years of experience, we qualified in 2011. So we have been categorically working with the startup ecosystem, right from housing.com times, such companies where we have been part and parcel. And today's session, my main agenda would be to just guide you people the importance and the role of finance in a company, the importance of a virtual CFO that you must have, because we have seen in the journey later on, people face challenges which they have not thought of earlier. So all these 15 years, we have played a virtual CFO role, guiding them multiple. We call ourselves as one-stop solutions. Anything and everything that a startup needs from a CA, CS and a legal front that we are able to provide. If not, definitely on the mentorship front also.
Hi everyone, I'm Aditi and I was the first to meet Tarun actually in one of the events which had happened in which I don't remember whichever
During
session it
IPL.
was. Yes. So I came here actually just to network, and then I just give you an introduction about myself. I'm also a CACS, but other than just doing that, I was working as a CFO with multiple startups. Brokers was my first break, and then after that I eventually started with other ones which were Care24 and Logistics Solutions. So after working with them for quite a number of years, I realized that I should do something of my own. And that's when I started doing register. I became a registered valuer, and I started doing valuations. So valuation is my expertise. From past 5 years, I've been working in this domain, and I must have done valuation for different domains of companies. Somebody would be from crypto, somebody would be from fintech, somebody would be from, for example, edtech, or it could be various other domains like manufacturing, or even HR hiring, for example, or it could be something related to construction also, for example. So a lot of different domains I've worked real estate in different companies. So when I was doing the valuations, of course, building up the revenue, building up the financial model, that is something, it's every time there's a new learning which is happening. And of course, there's compliance happening. So whenever you do a fundraise, you definitely require a valuation report. So that also comes into picture. But before you go for the fundraise, sometimes you also need to know what a valuation is. So if you've seen Shark Tank, you must have also seen that how the pitching session happens, how they're negotiating. So I am kind of here to give you a little brief of how the investors, what are the aspects that they really look for when you're wanting to fundraise. So those points also I will be covering up, and of course then there are a lot of other things to follow. So I would like to take it up when the session starts.
Thanks, Aditi. So guys, my name is Ketan. Tarun, thank you for getting us such a diverse set of group for this session. I think we have EV, strategic advisory, financial advisory, a marketplace, I guess HR services also, and fintech as well. So looking forward to this session. So my background is I've been an investor for about 18 years prior to my startup. Worked with companies such as Goldman Sachs and Northern Trust Asset Management, advising on fundraise throughout. And I joined a startup a couple of years back, and then we moved on to start Loan Network. Pratik is one of my co-founders, and what we are trying to do is there's this startup wave here, right? Like, everybody is starting up, and financial advising. I mean, people who have entrepreneurial energy, the financial, the background knowledge of how the financial services work, which is an important aspect of the business, is not well understood. So we are providing those services, and startup. Ronak advises them, and then once the companies are out of the gate and trying to grow, they typically need debt and equity capital, and that's where we come in and we can advise people on how to go and raise efficient and optimal debt.
Great. Can we have a huge round of applause? All right. So, Ronak, you want to start the session first? Can we have please get comfortable there? Rohan will be helping you. Just give him a cue and answer. Yeah. So, Rohan, can you start the presentation?
Good evening. Everyone's done with a cup of tea, coffee, and I'll not bore you guys. We can have this interactive. My agenda here is not to run you through sections, clauses, what does government says on TDS, GST, no. I am predominantly here to mentor new age entrepreneurs. Basis my experience of last 15 years, where I found them committing multiple errors which have proven them largely costly at the later stage. Because what normally happens is, in the early stage, people and co-founders are of the approach, chalta hai. But that is not the case in India. In India, everything is through corporate governance. So my session here is themed in a manner wherein I would like you to be aware of the corporate governance around it, right from the initial stage when you have just born, like someone told me you just born 45 days back. So what things you should be taking care of, and likewise through your journey, how you could. So I will be covering those sessions, not technical as such, going into sections or theories, but this is the used cases. I've specifically drafted this is the last 15 years of used cases which I've followed. Yeah, next one. So the first question is, so it will be divided into 3 portions, the entire session. But you can go through this entire page once. So it is predominantly divided, the entire PPT into 3 parts. One is, why do we need a virtual CFO, wherein I will be covering what is the importance and the role of a CFO or a virtual CFO in your company right from day one. Hiring a CFO full-time in-house is definitely costly. Hence the new concept of virtual CFO has come in the market because it is cost-effective and you get a lot of expert knowledge at a lower price. Not everyone in the industry is able to bear the high cost of a CFO right from day one. And by the time they reach that stage, there are chances that you have already missed out on multiple things. Second, I will be covering more about common mistakes by early age startups. I would devote 80% of my time there because this is something which are use case basis which I would want you to be known of, wherein it's not written in a Google theory. Okay, you just type, okay, which are the early stages. These are basis the experiences of the last 14-15 years. And the third section is what an accounts team do or what should be your expectation from an accounts team, whether it is in-house, whether it is outsourced. So as a founder, as an entrepreneur, ultimate responsibility and liability always lie with the owners. So you should be always aware of what are the risks that you're carrying and what are the ultimate responsibilities that you have to abide by. So these are the three broad sections which the entire session will be covered. Yeah. So virtual CFO provides strategic financial advice and support to businesses without need of a full-time in-house CFO. As I mentioned, it is cost-effective. Virtual CFO helps founders to spend their time on business growth instead of finance or virtual CFO expertise in areas such as financial planning. Now let me cover the first part was financial planning. It's a very important aspect in a business to run through the finances, and financial planning goes hand in hand with that. You need to have your cash flow management and budget forecasting in place. Tomorrow if you go to an investor, the first question that is asked for is what is the current runway available with you guys, number one, and how do you plan to spend the new fund that we will be giving. Now without having a forecast or a clear numbers or even a cash flow management, you will not be able to crack the investors. Sir, you are comfortable with English now?
Yes, yes.
So without giving them a proper plan on the numbers, budgeting and forecasting and cash flow, how you will be spending, your cash flow management could be into 6 different segments. Could be in the form of employee benefit, what you're spending on marketing. So virtual CFO would definitely help you here in preparing that budget plan, in preparing the cash flow management, which would be an investor friendly. It shouldn't be more dynamic in nature because he or she might not appreciate that. So ultimately it has to be in line. There are a lot of cases which I have had in my experiences wherein a founder has a good business model, but if that is not backed up with proper presentation of the numbers and a cash flow planning, they fail. Because धंधा चलाना आएगा, but धंधा sustain करना is also an equally important job. The second important function that a virtual CFO helps is financial analysis. Cover 2 points here. One is overall financial decision making, and the second is advisory. Lot of startups comes up with new products every few months. They want to pivot themselves. They want to run through new product, new services. Now Indian governance is governed all around by taxation. I'll give you one small example. One of my clients started going into online gaming. Now online gaming, he did everything. He basically developed a team of 10 members. He got a valuation, he got a funded because those were through close family and friends and family houses. But the important aspect that they missed around while getting that fund was the taxation element. You must have all heard that online gaming is now at 28%. And 28% the government is now telling on the transaction value. If you might have heard, not on the margin. So that industry is still unstable because of this. So now he got the fund, he did everything, he could convince the investor, but since his financial decision making or advisory in the role of taxation was missing, he had to eventually shut down his business because that business could not be sustained. So when I call overall financial decision making, today if you are planning any product, like sir you told me you are into a 25 lakhs minimum orders ticket size, okay, wherein you are creating an online platform. Now every transaction in India is backed up with the proper taxation ecosystem, and unless and until you understand the thorough flow, you will not be able to take right and effective decisions. The role of having a virtual CFO here is very important, because you might go to a third person and ask consultancy one-off. But if a virtual CFO is part and parcel of your ecosystem, you can trouble him again and again. Because I have seen in the startups, every night they sleep. Tomorrow morning they will have something new idea which they would want to discuss with the founders, with the team, and then track their okay, should I go ahead with this? Because the pace at which startup works, they need everyone around the ecosystem handy. I qualified in 2010-11. In the boom run of 2013 and 14, I used to see founders coming to me with a sheet of paper. Ronak, this is the idea. I've already got a fund, just incorporate the company. And after getting the fund, they were basically designing, okay, let us pivot, let us introduce this new product and this, because investors are backing them. Because I'm backing on the promoter, I'm betting on the founder. But equally important is the taxation arm and the business metrics around it. So in India, though government is saying Startup India ecosystem, we are helping you guys. In this budget, obviously we had that angel tax that got removed from the ecosystem. But my honest advice to you is, whatever you guys are doing in your ecosystem, please be surrounded by proper financial advisory around you, which helps you take business calls, surrounded and close from all angles. It is very essential because tomorrow, if you miss out on anything, it has a large impact in future, which I'll cover in the second stage of common mistakes which are done. And third is accounting operations and oversight, bookkeeping, MIS reporting, compliance and administrative functions. But I meant this bookkeeping. New founders tend to keep books of accounts in Excel. They say, okay, I have hisab of every in and out. But just having records of every in and out doesn't serve the purpose. There are compliances around it. If you have bought anything, there would be GST around it. You need to take proper credit of that. Now, I don't expect an IITian to have all such knowledges right from day one. And if I tell you to go and hire an expert, day one it would cost you somewhere around 2-3 lakhs a month, which obviously will tell that is not economical for us. That is where someone like me, anyone, it's not only about me, anyone in this industry, there are a lot of people who provide services what we are doing today. But you should always be surrounded by such people in the ecosystem which guide you timely and in an effective manner. One example here on that compliance portion, one of my startup did a lot of purchasing. He was building a product and he said, I don't need a CA right now because ultimately my product will be ready after 2 years and then probably my operations will commence. Now what happened is, he raised 3-4 crores ka fund, he went to a CS, he did all his compliance filing and he procured 2 crores ka goods. Now what he missed out was, in all those procurement he could have claimed GST benefit on all the purchases that he has done. Now 2 crores, 18%, 36 lakhs is the ultimate cost which he came to know after 2 years. And then he comes on, sir, iska kya kare? Now it cannot be done because ultimately that fellow has not given you credit, you cannot take it. Then he's like, okay, I should have spent something that time, so this would have saved. So I always tell everyone in the ecosystem, chartered accountant or any financial expert will never be your cost center. In the longer run, they will always be your profit center. Have someone associated with them and keep them in the long run. Don't judge them by a monthly scale. If you treat them for the entire cycle, okay, evaluate them, okay, what I've paid my chartered accountant in the last 5 years and what I've got from him. Definitely you will be in the profit. Third thing, last one is on this front is scalability, technology connection. Scalability means you today are a newborn startup, you cannot afford bigger people, but you're definitely hiring an agency or someone who has seen companies like today I work with a newborn baby, plus like I work with a company like a Rapido, Zoomcar. These are all the companies which I'm working with right from incorporation. So 2015 and onwards till date, we are working with them. The reason being scalability. Whenever they grew, we were capable enough to assist them that what next needs to be taken here. It's not that their entire accounts are outsourced, but then they have a consultant who are with them right from day one. Wherever they need any sort of guidance, they can take it. Last one is connections. Obviously, when you work with such an ecosystem, you can end up, as I told you, we call ourselves as one-stop solution. You need anything around, we have valuation experts, we have MSME people. So tomorrow, depending upon the needs of business, we can always guide you what is the need. We'll come to the next slide. So this is the main place where I want to focus upon. Common mistakes happened in early stage startups. So level points. First point, non-infusion of initial share capital of the company profit. So everyone knows if you want to do a startup, 99% people will form a private limited company because obviously you want to take investment from investors. They'll always invest if you are a private limited company because they want shares in consideration of their investment. Now, majority people forget that there is an initial capital that I have to subscribe. Company one guy, it's not the case, it's over. If you have not put in your initial subscription money with the timeline, it's around 60 days or 90 days, basically then again you are contravening the provision of Companies Act. Now I'll give you a realistic example. One of our cases, what happened, that company incorporated, okay, the company is done. After 8 months, he went for a fundraise. Everything was done, and then there was a red flag in the due diligence report of the investors that okay, so and so sections is getting contravened, due to which first you have to go to compound your offense. There is a provision in compounding in Companies Act, post which we will be comfortable in putting in the money. A small thing. The initial capital is only 1 lakh. It was just due to laziness you may call that, okay यार डाल देंगे अपनी company, it's our money, our company, my money, I'll put in whenever necessary. But since it is a compliance oriented issue, it proved them very costly, due to which their funding actually got delayed for 3 months. Because compounding in a company's act is a longer process. So the awareness of having a consultant around you at every time, sir, you have incorporated a company, now is the right time to put in your initial capital. Likewise, the second important thing is to appoint an auditor within 30 or 60 days of company getting incorporated. People don't do that. Okay, audit kab aayega? In the month of September. Probably I'll think about in that time. No, there is a specified timeline in the act. Ki okay, as soon as the company is incorporated, I need to have an auditor on my board. I have to appoint an auditor in my first AGM itself. Second is unsecured loans taken from individual is legally prepaid as deposits. The second common mistake which I found out is company incorporated. There are few expenses of initial 5-10 lakhs that everyone has to incur in the company, and people at the end of the day tend to borrow from someone who might not be related to the company, some of friends, from a family member, or if it is from directors, it is absolutely fine. But if it is from a third party, in a private limited company, you cannot accept deposits. For example, if you are having a private limited company and I am one of your close friends, and you come and tell me tomorrow, Ronak sir, please 10 lakh rupees jara, if you can help me for few months. Taking loan from individuals is a common mistake which I have found for companies which they do. Tomorrow you'll again have to go for compounding, and you might have to end up paying same amount of penalty, interest if you have not followed the procedures. And then auditor might even qualify that. So don't do this. Don't take money. Only director can lend money to the company. And that too not also from borrowed fund. Aisa nahi chalega. Tomorrow you tell me, Ronak, you give it to me and then I'll put it in the money in the company. You have to lend the money in the company, not out of borrowed funds. So there's a specific guidelines from whom you can accept money in the company. Third point, fund raised to be kept in a separate bank account until the funds are ready to be utilized. You cannot accept the funds in your regular current account. There are two ways to raise funds. One is a private equity, or the second one is a right issue. In both ways, you issue shares against the consideration that is received. The law is very clear. You need to open a separate bank account. The money needs to come in there. You need to then execute your necessary paperwork, allot shares. Once allotment is done, then you are allowed to use that amount which you have received. Due to lack of awareness, what people do, normally you have a current account in which normally your operations are done. You take in the money without following all this procedure, and you start using that money right from day 1, day 2, as soon as the money is received. Now such things get flagged when tomorrow you are going for a bigger round, Series A, Series B, and that time the due diligence is conducted for your previous periods and such things get highlighted. It will not get automatically triggered. This will either be getting triggered from an auditor's perspective or in your next due diligence. Fourth one, round of excess share application money from investors, if not returned timely, could lead to compounding of offer. Now I know everyone does a round of valuation. If I am valuing my company at 10 crores, 20 crores, 30 crores, I will give a 10% stake for this, I'll give a 20% stake for this. That's how normally the negotiations happen and close between the companies and investors. Now what happens is when you drill down to the numbers, okay, ultimately how many shares you will be getting, there is a round of numbers that will always come. Whether it is an excess or whether it is shortage. Normally it will be an excess because you will be allotting the share, so it will be excess money. Don't keep that money lying in your balance sheet. Even if you have received 1 crore and at the end of the day your value per share is 1 lakh rupees, and that amount could be anytime lesser than 1 lakh obviously. Suppose it is 80,000, please ensure that you return that money timely to the investor, because as a company you are only supposed to receive number of shares multiplied by rate of shares. It happens that the investors have given you a round of figure if it is an early stage investor. If it is Series A, Series B, they will definitely do the calculation and then wire the exact amount. Fifth is loan given to directors leads to non-compliance and potential double taxation. This is also something which I have seen. खुद के पास पैसा नहीं है, कंपनी में 4 करोड़ की फंडिंग पड़ी है, 10 दिन यूज कर लेगा, वापस दे दूंगा इन्वेस्टर को. Investor is my friend, I just call him and tell him, no, you're not allowed. Loan to directors is legally not allowed. Why? Don't ask me. Legally it is not allowed. There is a provision, section 222E, which says that any money that a director has withdrawn or a shareholder has withdrawn from the company, it will be treated as a deemed dividend. Which means even if you have not paid, it would still get taxed in your hands. So this is a common phenomena. Company and the promoters, please treat them two different entities. They are not one, though you are the promoter. Company is a different legal entity. Promoter is a different legal person. Both of them should not be treated equally. Okay, this is my company, I can do anything and everything that I want. Fifth, sixth is without proper address on invoice, you can't claim input. The example that I was mentioning, you went on purchasing, you went on hiring my service. For example, you took my services and you have not fed in my GST number, or you have not taken proper address, and I have just built something to CoKarma without their address. Now legally they cannot take credit of that. So that is as per the invoice law. So product, when you are getting live into operations, before that there are a lot of services that you will take from multiple vendors who are charging GST. That is the credit. See, GST credit is something which you may carry indefinitely. It is not that it is getting time barred in a year. There are startups who are into product development stage, starting their product after 4 years. So all those credit that they are accumulated in the 4 years, they are able to utilize it in the 5th year. So that has a direct capital value. So please ensure that you are complied with the invoice, so that tomorrow claiming of input doesn't become a loss to you. Next is clearing invoices on foreign vendors without proper compliances could risk to penalties up to INR 1 lakh. Now this is also one thing. Lot of companies take services from foreign vendors, whether it is server services, marketing services, or anything. They are located outside the Indian territory, raising you an invoice, and what happens is normally you just swipe a credit card. You cannot pay it otherwise. Now there is a law around this, 15 CACB certification to the bank, that any payment that has to go from an Indian territory to outside for a services that you are paying, it has to be backed by a CS certificate. Else per transaction, there is a fine of 1 lakh rupees. So earlier traditional ecosystem, what used to happen, the invoice would come, you would go to the bank to process that, the bank will not process it without a 15 CACB certificate. Today, what has happened is, due to the ease of credit cards, we just go online, fill in our details, and the payment gets deducted. But that hasn't changed the law. That hasn't changed the law. In one of our companies, this was a humongous amount, and they ensured they took an affidavit from the founder that tomorrow if this liability comes, this is something personally you will be paying. Because the liability was so huge. So it is always advisable, right from day one, you do this compliance. It's a very small compliance, but it cannot be done backdated. So every startup tends to take services from a foreign vendors. Please get proper compliances done on this particular aspect. 8.1 is late payment of TDS can lead to prosecution of founders. I don't know how many of you guys are aware of. You cannot get relief from a TDS default just by paying interest. You cannot get just by paying interest. Government is very clear. It is my money. You are not authorized to use my money without my permission, and they don't give permission to use their money. So there is a section in income tax specifically states that there is a threshold limit around it, that minimum 25 lakhs of default. If that default has been, if that threshold has been met, government is today imposing, direct taxes are imposing prosecution on their founders. And the only way around this is to file compounding in income tax, which is 4 times of the interest TDS on interest amount which you have paid. Which means today the interest amount or the interest percentage that you pay is 18%. Direct tax, सरकार आज आपसे 1.5% महीने का लेती है, 1.5%, and at the end of it eventually you'll end up paying 60% or more than that. Sorry, 18 into 4. Else they have full right to initiate prosecution proceedings against founders. There are multiple startups today who have grown too huge, are now facing this issue. Obviously, this info is not available in public, but people are facing such kind of challenges. So ensure that we do not mess up with government's money, whether it is GST, TDS, PFPT, SSC, anything. First thing is pay off them, clear them, and make the necessary commitments. Ninth is improper accounting reconciliation of receipt from payment gateway can lead to GST and TDS losses. This is also one thing which we have found. You are providing services, you have enabled razor or any payment gateway, you are getting receipts from payment gateway. अब वो आपको पैसा जो दे रहा है ना, he or she or they are deducting everything and then remitting you the money. So for example, if 100 is the product value, they might end up giving you 95. Now that 5 rupees component which they have not given you has issues around GST, TDS, everything around it, for which you guys have to do that compliance. People are not aware of this. People are happy to say, okay, I got 95 against it, I don't care. No sir. You have raised invoice of 100, you have received in your account 95, so you have to do that repo of 5. And that reconciliation involves paying GST as well as TDS in that entire process. So please be aware of this, because 90% of the service revenue that a startup gets is from a payment gateway. 10th is hidden employee cost in the form of ESOP, leave encashment and gratuity. Whenever you are giving any CTC or finalizing for any employee, do remember ESOP is something which you are very well aware of. There is an act wherein you have to provide leave encashment and gratuity, which is compulsorily. There is no option around it. Even the financial statements that we prepare has a note and has a working of gratuity and leave encashment, which means if tomorrow if you are having 100 employees, there is a calculation around it that okay, this much is the gratuity amount that may come up if they are there for 5 years, and you will have to make a provision for this. And for that you will need to have an actual valuation report irrespective of having even a number of employees. I think for gratuity the threshold is same, but you will have to have that actual valuation report in place. Please don't miss out this, else you are contravening AS 15. So these are all those use cases which a smaller company is not able to think of. Last is choose wise collar investors who can help us in documentation program. This is something which we faced last 2 years. People raised money, lot of money. Future mein assessment came. Assessment when the income tax officer is asking, boss, let us know the background of the people who are investing. One company had a fund based in Mauritius. Mauritius guy says, sir, there is no provision here of taxes, we don't prepare anything. Income taxes, I don't know. If you are taking money from an investor, it has come in your books of accounts. You are answerable. Just providing a KYC doesn't help. I need to check credit worthiness of the person who have invested in you. What do you mean by credit worthiness? I cannot beg, borrow, steal and put in the money in your company. White collar. I need to have a network behind me. And if then I am investing in your company, no problem to the income tax department. I do not have a source to prove from where I have invested. Whatever money you have taken in your books of accounts, today you have not paid taxes, no? What you did, you raised a fund of 10 crores, set in your capital account and you are using. Ideally in the entire process, did you pay any taxes? No. So government is very clear. This has to be backed by a white collar investment, because at the end of the day, the money that you have taken in, you are not paying taxes in this country. So prove me the credit worthiness. So don't take money from anyone on this earth just showing that okay, Gandhi ji aa rahe, so let us proceed. Be very sure that tomorrow you don't land up in a problem which proves costly. Anyone has any question here? Okay, next. So I'll just quickly wrap up what an accounts team do. Account team can help you with accounts and payments, which everyone does. Financial reporting, MIS. This is a very important part. I always advise all my startups once in a month to prepare an MIS which captures all your costs, not on cash basis but on approval basis. Tomorrow there is a fee payable to someone, but just because that party has not raised you an invoice, that doesn't mean that is not the cost of that particular month. Just because he or she has not raised an invoice, it doesn't absorb your liability. So prepare an MIS so that it gives you a clear picture of your revenue and cost, helps you understand what is my actual burn, what is my actual cash burn and my actual burn. There is a difference. Cash burn is something which you have only paid, but there are a lot of other costs that has approved but you have not paid. Third is treasury and capital management. Very important, sir. 1 crore रुपया अगर capital account में पड़ा, you need to learn how do I earn on that. There are debt funds available in the market which you can even invest on Friday, redeem on Monday, you still get a return of 7%. I always tell everyone, 1 crore lying in your bank account is effective to 7 lakhs annually, 50,000 a month. So don't keep any money idle. Plan your treasury in a manner by which you can earn money from your money. Don't keep it idle. Let your money work. Compliance, all your necessary compliance. I'm not taking each and every one. GST, DDS, PF, PT, whatsoever. Please have that approach that we will be working in a proper governance structure and everything is properly covered. Investors really appreciate a founder who have appropriately driven his company compliance based. Tomorrow you may fall apart, you might not fall apart, that is a separate story, but being compliant will always help you in the long run. Third is, last one is financial planning and ethics, of which I covered this, that is FP&A, cost. So this is something which we portray here, that if you have an in-house team, basically the structure would be an accountant plus manager plus founder. Always the founder will have to devote considerable time along with that. Versus if it is someone as an outsourced agency in the initial stage, you just need an accountant or a virtual CFO because you are getting that experience from someone who has already seen this journey throughout. So at the initial stage itself, he or she can properly guide you so that you don't end up doing silly mistakes. So we can move on to the next thing. Few questions to us. What are our goals here? Our primary goal is to provide comprehensive services to the startup, educating and supporting them in building a robust trillion-dollar ecosystem in India. As I mentioned, my first goal is to mentor. Business is my secondary agenda because I always believe I've always worked with founders right from 2011. They can bring massive change on anything because of the scalability that they have. So guiding them right from day one, the role that investors play, the role that consultants play is equally important. Second is how long we have been in the industries. I qualified in 2011. We have been serving since last 13 years. We are working with since 200 odd startups in the ecosystem, right from someone at an initial stage to a Series A, Series B, Series D round. So we have seen all this journey throughout. What services do we offer? Our services and compliance are light range, one-stop solution. So I clearly call myself, me and Pratik, one-stop solution. Anything and everything that you need for a startup, either we do it in-house or either we will connect you with someone who is a pro in this industry so that you get fast and timely services. Yeah, thank you. I think the next I will call Ketan, who will take the rice.
Thanks, Ronak. Thanks for a very insightful session. So, guys, I mean, all of you guys have heard about debt or you have raised debt. Maybe it's a home loan or some other kind of loan, right? So all of us are familiar with that. So, and before I delve into what we do and how do we start, for debt, when it comes to business debt, there are three fundamentals to it. One, who is eligible, right? Either you need to have some collateral of sorts to raise debt, or you need some sort of profitability or like a future cash flow to serve that. So that's one. That's your ability to raise debt along with collateral. And then the next part is willingness. And I am sure you have all heard about lots and lots of defaults, right? They are like willful defaulters. You read about them every day in the newspaper. So the CIBIL history, I think CIBIL, everybody has heard about CIBIL score. So CIBIL is very key important metric. So those are some of the things before I start talking about how do you raise debt, you should be familiar. Every time you go and raise debt, whether it's in personal capacity or whether it's in a company's capacity, there is a PAN card attached to it, right? PAN number. And if you have any liabilities or dues to it, that becomes very challenging to raise debt. So I mean, for just not as an advisor, but from a personal point of view also, I would advise to keep your CIBIL history clean if you are planning to raise debt. And why do we need raise debt? I mean, we don't raise debt to go gamble, or hopefully nobody is doing that, or go investing in stocks. Debt is usually like a growth capital, right? You are started up, you set up a company, you are you proved your value to the ecosystem, and now you have constant order flows. But at any given point of time, you are scared to do only this amount of business or this amount of business, and you want to go to the next stage. You need more capital, and capital is the blood of the business, right? Without capital, you can't start, you can't scale.
So those are the fundamentals of why do you raise debt. So Loan Network, we are a debt advisory firm. We do debt syndication, and I'll come to what debt syndication is. But we specialize in raising debt for MSMEs and startups. We have a 3-member teams. We have 3 partners. 2 of us are IT graduates. Been working in financial services industry for over 18 years. And then we have Prateek, who is a chartered accountant. He's also worked for about 15 years. So very seasoned team. We have advised to a lot of mid-market companies, anybody in the range of who just started up to doing 20 to 50 crores of revenues in the SME segment, and we have also advised to the larger companies who are doing construction finance or building. So we advise to everybody. Anybody who has any need of debt, we can help them. Next slide, please. Just quickly, the 3 founders of the company. Next slide, please. So among all other things, you need debt to grow your business, but you have alternative sources of capital also, whether it is debt and then equity, and then some other instruments which are somewhere in the middle, hybrid instruments convertible debt, etc. So why do you go and raise debt? Why don't you go and raise equity itself? Any thoughts?
Cheaper.
It's cheaper. Basically, when you are raising equity in your venture, you are diluting at the same point of time. And if you are able to secure some sort of capital upfront, you can either postpone the dilution or you don't have to dilute at all. And you still have the capital to go and grow the business. I mean, you want to work with the government, you want to have a contract, but you have to give a bank guarantee of 5 crores. Right? Where you get this capital? You have to go and work with the financial services, it could be an NBFC or it could be a bank, but you still need to secure the capital. And in most cases, not in every case, that tends to make sense, or at least you have to explore that option. So that's the fundamental reason, and we can go in more detail about why debt is cheaper. I'll give you example of venture debt. But before that, what are the challenges the SMEs, MSMEs, and startups, some of them might be in the finance background and it's fine, you know how to do it. But again, the challenge is, what are the debt products? Right? We have all heard about home loan, then there's personal loan, there are I don't even know how many products are out there. But we are only about 10% of the industry is banked. 10% of the population is banked. Right? There's a 90% population. Not everybody will get banked at any time soon. But as we grow and explore more opportunities, both from the private side as well as the government side, there are people are introducing new products, which can help somebody. Because one thing is sure about debt. You might be taking a home loan and you might be taking a home loan, but the product you might avail is different, because loan is always a subjective assessment, a very personal assessment of the conditions and who the borrower is. So you have to find out what is the debt product. You can basically go and borrow unsecured capital at 18%, but somebody tells you if you have very good visibility of how to repay, you can just mortgage your home or some other property and you can take a loan against property, which you can avail the debt at 11%, 12% interest rate. So having the right awareness is critical about which kind of debt you want to go and raise. Second is, there are 10,000 registered NBFC, and you have heard about all the 100, 150 odd banks. Which one you go to? Who is going to give you the cheapest capital? Who is going to give you the maximum eligibility? You can work. I worked in the financial services industry, but before I actually started this business, I had very limited knowledge of which bank I should go to. So working with a consultant gives you that kind of visibility that you are not taking, you're not paying more than what you should, and also sometimes the fund requirement is very urgent, very immediate in basis. So you are a founder, you have done build a business, done very well, but which I need loan in 10 days time to fulfill an order. Where should I go? Whether it is HDFC Bank, whether it is SBI Bank, don't go to SBI. Because they're going to take their time. So turnaround time is also very critical when you are trying to scale a business. And then the other thing is expertise also means if you're trying to raise say 2 crore debt, but for a particular product which is of the best most suited for your requirement, a bank might limit I'm only going to take 50 lakhs debt. So I need to go 4 or 5 other banks who can give you a similar product, so the entire bucket could be filled. Now you might have a relationship with one banker, but you will also need somebody like us. Consultants tend to have we work with about 100 banks on a day-to-day basis, so we know who does what is the turnaround time, what file if you any given borrower, which borrower should go to which bank. So that's an expertise which we have, and that's because we do it day in and day out. Then you have, I think the other challenges are as Ronak mentioned, not every company has a CFO or somebody who has done debt advice. And typically people who have executed debt deals tend to be very expensive because raising debt is a very critical task. So where do you go to? I mean hire a CFO which is going to cost you a bum and have on your payroll for every year. Hire CFO services which probably are going to redirect to you somebody who they do it on a day-to-day basis. So that's also in-house expertise is also not typically available. And then the last and the most important part of the value addition a debt consultant can do for you is, I think we have startups here, but there could be companies which have multiple entities and you don't know where you can get the most optimal debt, right? So you have to do structuring, whether I should make one entity a part of another entity or do something and just depending on what kind of debt you are trying to raise, whether it will basically make another co-party as another third party as a co-borrower, bring in your spouse as a co-borrower to reduce the cost of debt. There are multiple options, and typically the banks are not going to advise you the most optimal capital, right? They want to get you the maximum interest rate or just give the disbursement which they comfortably can, but they're not going to put in a lot of thought and effort into how you can optimize the debt across based on whatever access to other entities, other resources you have, what other collateral you have. And it could also mean having multiple combination of financial products in the kit, right? There is a product called CGMS STS, right? Where the central government provides the security for the loan you got. But you go to the private banks, they will tend to give you a hybrid. They will say the limit is 5 crore, but we can do up to 1 crore for you, and then the rest of it we're going to give us some collateral. So we're going to do a hybrid loan for you. So, but which bank you go and if you're eligible, one bank is offering 2, can you go into a different bank and get 3 crores, which is your requirement with the same collateral, etc. That's where somebody like us could be very helpful. We can move on to the next slide. So, have you guys heard about venture debt? So, right now what I discussed is more all the traditional forms of debt. Either you need collateral or you need cash flow, profitability, etc. But there is this alternative debt class called venture debt, and there are some certain restrictions to it. I can't go and raise debt. Most of people can't go and access this kind of capital, and there's a reason for that. So, what is venture debt? So, venture debt is typically offered by these venture funds. You might have heard the name of Black Soil, Altera, N+1, there are multiple, lot of those guys. So they typically provide venture, funds to company which has already done significant round of capital raise from a known venture fund. It could be Sequoia, it could be Info, somebody who has a standing in the industry. And when they give you a vote of confidence, and people think you have the ability to raise more debt. So with this venture debt, one of the difference between this debt and the typical debt is you don't pay it from your cash flow from operations, right? This typically is paid by the next round of funding capital. and you kind of like, delaying the fundraise. So how does it work? I'm going to just, so it's given to VC industries, the amount is like, if a VC has funded, given you funds of say 100 crores, typically the maximum you can raise is 20 to 25 crores. So and this is typically a very expensive debt, but still cheaper than equity. So the typical numbers would be, there would be a 15% cash coupon attached to it, and then you would have like a 10% warrant to it. So it is, instead of like, anywhere in the traditional products where you can get from 9% to 18%, this starts from 25%. And this is like, you're issuing warrant also. So you take 10%, say 10 crore debt, you will be paying 1.5 crore as a cash coupon, and then you will be giving them equity in forms of options or warrant worth 1 crore rupees, right? And how does the venture capital guys, he's not a crazy guy, they're pretty smart guys, right? Like, why do they provide you debt without collateral or any, visibility or profitability? Is A, they believe in you. See, it's given to the company, it's given to the promoter, not even the company. The venture guys basically are making a call on the ability of the promoter to raise future rounds of equity. If they believe in you, I think that's where the conversation starts, where they don't get. And then, today you are equity, like, 1 crore equity is worth at like, say 100 crores valuation. Next round of valuations happens at say 300 crores. So automatically the value of this warrants goes from 1 crore to 3 crores. Right? So this is an ideal world. Like, this is not what happens every day. This is by definition a very risky product. You have no collateral and no cash flow. So when the venture debt guy is taking a bet on you and giving you like, making such a risky investment, he's making like, a very good return on it in an ideal world. So return would be 15% cash coupon, and they hold it for 1 year, and your valuation of the stocks go from the 1 crore to 3 crore. So he has made a 45% return. So he's going to do 10 deals like this. He's probably going to lose money on like the entire capital on a couple of them. Some of them will drag, and some of them will give like a very good return on, not on the cash coupon, but on like, the equity warrant. So that's how this works. So the use of this debt again is to like, take your company from position A. So you might be doing say 100,000 orders in a month, if you are an e-commerce company, and your valuation is typically, the valuation a VC fund will provide you is going to be like a multiple of that transaction, whatever that number is. Now, if you are able to delay equity raise using this venture debt by like a year or 6 months, and you took that 100,000 order number from 100 to 200,000, and assuming all the multiples, etc., remain the same, your valuation has become, right? It has become 2x. So by raising debt, like, giving a 30% interest, you've been able to reduce significant equity dilution. And I'm just going to show you some numbers, like, which hopefully will clarify this assumption. So this is, somebody did a fundraise, Series A in April 21, and did a Series B in November 22, without entering to any venture debt in between. Same company alternatively did a venture debt in July 21 and did, raised a Series B in March 23. Now, the invested amount remains the same. In the Series A, they had done 5, in the Series B at 8. So nothing has changed. Like, the fundraise you have done remains the same. So revenue, I think like that's the critical task part, like, which you highlighted in the blue circle. So they were able to grow to like $9 million in this point, and like, while by delaying the fundraise, they were able to get to the $11 million number in revenue. So the multiples will remain the same, and then runway kind of remains the same. But if you look at the end of the day, see, look at the amount raised remains the same, but founder stake dilution after the entire exercise year got reduced from 67% to 46%, while here it got reduced from 67% to 51%. So you see, right, like, he was able to reduce his dilution by 5%. And that could be worth like a lot of money in terms of, and money is one thing in a startup, when if you are able to maintain control, there is a significant value to it. So this is like a very convenient case where he was able to go, he went down to 46% below the majority stake, but here he was able to maintain the controlling stake. So this could be worth a lot of money, or like, even if it's not money, it's like, the company still remains yours. You can make all that, you can take all the actions you want. So that's your venture debt. Again, it's not a traditional product, it's an alternative form. But I think since we have like majority of guys here are startups, I thought that would be interesting for you guys to know more about this. Then we can come to the traditional products. And I think like these are just some of the terminology so which I can explain. Everybody here is aware what is a secured loan, what is an unsecured loan, right? Like, for secured loan, you are giving some sort of property as a collateral. So in the likely case that you're not able to repay the EMIs, etc., banks will wait for a while, but then they will basically liquidate the property and then get their money back. Then there are funded and unfunded loans, and I'll discuss more of that in detail. And the structured solution, I kind of already spoke about it earlier in the session. So can we move to the next slide? So the funded product is where, and like the easiest definition, may not be the perfect one, is where the cash from the bank hits your bank's account, right? So whether it could be in the form of a term loan, it could be in form of like a overdraft facility, or it could be in form of cash credit. So these are like the typical 3 funded products, and then there could be like invoices which you can finance. So I think we have sir who helps in like reducing working capital cycles. So invoicing tends to be one of them. Like you have made a delivery to somebody, like you have raised your invoice, he will pay you in a month's time, say like 10 lakh rupees. Somebody will offer you product, you can get, instead of 10 lakh rupees, you can have the 9.5 lakh rupees right now, and I will recoup like the rest 9.5 lakh directly from the investor. So I made like an interest. So you have discounted the invoice, but from a company's point of view, he has been able to convert revenues into cash faster. So that's one. Term loans, I think, like which we are all familiar with, right? Like you borrow 10 crores and then it's like a 10 lakh rupees EMI. Typically, the banks won't care whether you are using this capital to pay salaries, whether you are buying materials for that. In invoice financing, you can't pay salaries. You just have to buy the materials or provide a service, sort of things. And then cash credit and overdraft, they are typically used for like buying some material. So if you want to deliver something, but you have to buy it first before you go and deliver that. So you will get a cash credit and overdraft for like 45 days. I'm going to make this delivery of 25 lakh rupees today. The buyer is going to pay me back in 45 days. So until that, I need some sort of like facility. So I'm just going to borrow. Typically, it works like they will give you an upper limit to how much you can borrow from the banks. It could be 50 lakhs, it could be 1 crore, and they don't force you to use this facility all the time. Term loan, you have taken 1 crore, you have to pay interest on 1 crore. Here, you can borrow up to 1 crore at any point of time. So if for this month my outstanding is only 50 lakhs and not 1 crore, I'm going to pay interest only on the 50 lakh rupees. I'm not going to pay interest on the 50 lakhs I did borrow. So this is like one of the product which becomes attractive for the companies where you have where the credit needs go up and down on a frequent basis. So typically how the companies would structure their debt is they're going to have like some term loan facilities, say, which is 2 crore rupees, and then based on the season, based on like various other factors, my loan need can go up from like 10 lakh rupees to 1 crore. So what I'm going to do is take a OD facility from the bank for 1 crore rupees, and it's up to me. Like if I have more orders to service and I need 50 lakh rupees, I can borrow 50 lakh rupees and repay them back a month later. So this becomes very attractive for them. There are no questions asked. Once you have the initial sanction, you can just go and withdraw the money from the bank, and you can repay it back. It's all pretty much on an automatic route, so you don't have to interact in daily basis on a banker. Hey, today I want more loan, or today I want to pay you back. So those are your typical funded products. And then these are unfunded products, and they are probably used more by the larger companies, like not the startups. They tend to be the bank guarantees, and a typical case would be, say if you are a contractor to government. We just did one facility for one of our clients who does integration work for telecom companies. So he's doing it for BSNL, and he needs a 5 crore bank guarantee to do an order which is worth about 20 crore rupees. So you basically go and get the bank guarantee. What it does is, if the contractor is not able to deliver the services as per the contract, the bank has not paid the money to anybody, but bank has given a guarantee to this user of the service. If this guy doesn't deliver, then you can use the money you can encash the bank guarantee, go to a different vendor and get this thing done. So that's your bank guarantee. Letter of credit is also something which is used for, sometimes more frequently in exports, imports, etc. Again, the entire concept of banking is based on trust, right? Like, why you will not give me money today, right? Like, if I ask you, give me 1 crore rupees, will you? You probably will not. So banks and the financial institutions tend to create, the value addition they do is like they bring factor of trust. You don't trust me, but I trust the bank, right? Like, you provide the service and you're taking the guarantee from the bank. Regardless of whether Ketan pays me or not, the bank will pay me. Right? So that just eases the transaction when you are typically working with newer players, etc. So that's your MSME debt. There are some other products which I'll just throw them out there. They are supply chain finance products. You are a large vendor and you want to hire 20 odd guys, but they cannot get avail loan based on their balance sheet. What do you do? I do you can go and vouch for these guys that I do say 1 crore worth of business, and even though his balance sheet doesn't support it, I give you sort of endorsement that you give him 50 lakh rupees loan, he will repay you, and I'll take the guarantee for that. So those are some of the other products. Typically, the vintage, when you are trying to go and raise debt, vintage tends to be very important. I think thumb rule is 3 years of vintage, then at least you don't get rejected on that criteria. And then the longer track record you have in a line of business, then the banks would be more trustworthy, and that would be one of the criteria in what interest rate banks will lend to you. It's just somebody who has done it before is you're making a bet he'll be able to complete the same task again in a different environment. So you're charging them less interest rate. So I think that's all from me. Then I'll hand it over to Aditi to take you through the balance sheet.
So we are into the import and exports, whatever you said, bank guarantee and LC. So we have orders worth of some X here. So we are looking for whatever we are already looking for investment bankers who are already kept with the deals and all that. But coming to this, they actually told, okay, collateral is not an issue. We will give you this much of the fund based on the term loan, so you can repay me that. But what happened is there is a contract that actually had a terms. If you reject, whenever the bank calls, if we sign contract with the investment banker and okay, banker called me, okay, sir, you got this much of amount of loan. If we reject that, we have to pay X% of interest, X% of amount for the credited guarantee. So I just want to know how we can solve that problem. The importer, exporter have a work, he has all the whatever LCs, purchase orders and all that. But the guarantee they want is they want to have something.
So basically, you have to pay a small commitment fees. That's what you're talking about.
Like after the, like even before the credit, like even before the bank funds us.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the nature of the business. I mean, even when you take the home loan, they deduct the EMI on the day one, right? Like, you know, so that's just cost of doing business.
Yeah,
But if I'm not understanding the problem correctly, we can probably connect offline. And
Okay.
Hello everyone. Good morning. I can see some sleepy faces. I would like everyone to kind of pay attention because this is an aspect when you're looking for fundraise, or if you're looking probably to understand what next 5 years of your company is going to do. So this is something that's going to help you. So which is why I'm here. I'm here to give you a knowledge session on the forecasting, how you will forecast. If you're pitching investors, and what kind of questions the investors will throw up, or how you could be investor ready. And of course, that I already mentioned, how Shark Tank deals with people. You must have seen. So you see them going back in the room and then negotiating or calling somebody to understand whether I should take the deal or not, right? So what does that really depend on is something also I'm going to talk about. So it might be not directly related, but all the aspects or most of the aspects I've tried to cover here. Alright, so yeah, so I'm, as I mentioned, already a valuer. Can we go on to the next slide? But before we go, okay, now since we are on this slide, I'd first like to know how many of y'all are looking for a fundraise, have gone through a phase of fundraise, or have typically managed a situation where y'all have seeked a compliance valuation report. Can I have hands here? Right, so can one of y'all, each of y'all can share your experiences first, then I'd like to take up from here. Could you please mention your name here?
Hi, my name is Shantanu and my firm is Pro Carbon. We are a climate tech business.
Okay.
We raised a very small amount initially, so honestly we did not raise a lot of profit. But I do understand what you're saying in terms of the valuation being correct and how the equity can seem a little tricky because of the valuation. So that's, I think,
okay.
we thought that.
How is that? Thank you for that.
So basically, I run a venture studio where we help start from day zero.
Okay.
So we got a funding acceptance call from one of the partners in HDFC to one of the portfolio of startup in the list of cybersecurity.
Okay.
So whenever we get that, they told they will use the ISEF kind of thing to invest in the startup. So I thought, like, in terms of future, they will get some kind of valuation and they will whenever they invest now, they will have a edge in the future terms.
Right.
So I just that is a very critical term for the startup, to have future progress, and whenever we go on, whenever the progress is very good and they got something. So yeah, that's my experience, using the ISEF and notes and all that. Yeah.
Thank you. You, sir? I think if I had heard you, you were mentioning that you are looking for financial modeling and to understand how this domain works. Somebody else also raised their hand. Tarun, you should also mention what was your experience with getting the valuation.
I think it can be, my wife is a chartered accountant, so I get a lot of help from there.
Yeah.
But I think it can be a daunting process despite having a lot of help around you. So having somebody who's an expert at it, who understands valuation and has an experience in it, goes a long way, I think. So I think we will speak to you again next round.
Yes, and you had something to mention also?
In terms of funds, I raised a very pre-seed kind of funds,
Okay.
almost around 4 crores.
Is this about this company? Or
Yes,
okay.
it's the first time company only. So around 4 crores is from HNIs only.
Okay.
We found it without a working model for a B2B marketplace. Investors is a very difficult situation to be in, right? So in our sector, so I've been in the business, so there's like-minded people that have invested around 3.5, 4 crores.
Okay.
So there, determining the valuation was a bit difficult. So I had to go back to my textbooks pre-MBA, right? So Ashwath Damodaran was one example. Yes. So Ashwath Damodaran, I found again a VC method of calculation only.
Right.
So your PE into estimated exit value upon your 1 plus your returns to your VC upon the years, right?
Yes.
The number of years you're going for an IPO.
Yes.
So that basic formula I had applied and I started pitching over there.
Okay.
But I still felt overwhelmed by the kind of returns which were going out, right?
Right.
So that's one very, very recent experience of going through all of that.
Right.
But we needed that money along with our capital into the company because it is a very, very capital intensive business.
Right.
Right. And I have to achieve that kind of scale to get things up and running. And especially when you are 45, 60 day old, debt is almost out of the question. Right. Your CGT MSc helps.
For that, I think Ketan will give you a good answer.
Yes, CGT
But
MSc
yeah, I
helps, but again CGT MSc would require a little bit of vintage to get into. But the actual business is a completely debt run, debt focused business. So I was overwhelmed when the returns and the valuation. There are plethora of valuation models available also.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I just stuck to the basic, easiest method which we could pitch.
Right.
So that's about it when we were starting.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Submit that made a vintage for the CGT.
Okay.
We'll connect separately.
Yes.
So before I start, I'll just take a very typical case here. Okay, you can read it if you all want because this slide is anyway available. But I'll just explain what I'm trying to tell you here. Typically, when you're starting a company, okay, your first stage is that, as Ronak already mentioned, that you want to do a financial planning. Because without a proper financial plan, you would not know what your company is going to achieve in next 5 years, what it could achieve, what are the costs that could be, incurred in the process. Especially the marketing cost and employee cost goes very heavy with all the companies, that are dealing with. They are, of course, in every operation, in most of the operations. Of course, some are manufacturing-led or trading-based companies. So then they work separately, or if it is a SaaS-based company, then they have a separate. So everybody's profit and loss account and everybody's balance sheet speaks differently. But let us come to that later. That's a forecasting that we can take that point later. But let us just consider this typical example where there is a company, it's a 2-year-old company. It is already doing good profits. It is having a good historical background, which is doing good revenues. Now they are going for a Series B round and they want to raise 50 crores. All right. Now, the first question arises is at what stage? Suppose at this stage they are looking for funds. At what valuation should they pitch the investors? That's the first question.
I'm sorry, I just need to
Right.
I remember the process when you were just filling out. So whether to achieve the valuation on basis of your profit or to determine the profit depending upon your valuation. That was the dilemma I was facing. So you need to assume what would be your exit profit, right?
So there are methods as you mentioned, right? So typically I'll just come, since I'm talking about this, I'll take it up. I was thinking of taking up later, but I'll mention this. So there are typically 3 types of models. One is the financial model where your forecasting is prepared. One is the valuation model which arrives at the valuation. And the third one which we are looking at is a scenario modeling. So now scenario modeling is something which is coming up. You see a unicorn also doing well and you see one startup just shutting down at any given stage, right? So why this happens? Because you've not planned for the scenarios. Now typically pre-COVID, many of the companies were doing really well, but post-COVID you saw that these companies and some of them boomed in the COVID period, and then you see now again they're now not working and not going that well. So these are some of the scenario analysis which we can look at, right? Now talking about valuation particularly, there are various methods and there are 3 kind of approaches to valuation. So one is cost approach, one is income approach, and then one is the market approach. So when you go with market approach, you see the comparable companies. When you go with your income approach, it's the DCF, which is the widely used method. And if you go with the cost approach, it's mostly when you are having a share transfer, or it's mostly in the case where you are kind of closing down the business, then the company uses. So it's of course up to the judgment of the valuer. You could seek advice there with the valuer. But these are the typical approaches, and at what stage the company is, based on that the valuer or the, some of the compliance is also very particularly used to mention earlier that these are the kind of approaches or the methods you have to use. But now it's very different. now even government has started accepting various other methods because we have it justified based on, you know, in the piece of paper that we are going to show them. So before I even talk about this, I want to tell you one thing. Every company has a story to tell, right? Now that story is to be prepared in the form of numbers when you're pitching the investors, okay? Whether that story is pessimistic, optimistic, or, you know, in whichever direction it is going, but if you are using the realistic numbers, I'm very sure that your investors will be very much, you know, agreeable to your investment. The point of negotiation will be very minimalistic because you're going to have a realistic number there. Now, how to arrive at the realistic number is up to the expert, because they do a market research, they do a market study, and then they arrive at this valuation. Which is why when we do our own way of methods, we do our own pitching, you know, before that if we have some expert, I'm not saying it could be me, it could be even somebody from your team for that matter. It could be a typical CEO also, for example. But let them plan for your financials and then let them, you know, probably develop that kind of a model that helps you pitch, you know, in future also. I'll come to a lot of points how practically you can use them. But let us now start with what we were talking about. Now, in this typical case, company is looking for a fundraise. What is the scenario that they are approached with several VCs, but they don't know what the company is going to be valued at. And they want to understand what is the current value of the company, right? Whether there are buyers, and if the buyers are ready, at what rate are they willing to invest, right? So now what a typical company should do? They should first hire a valuation expert. I've already mentioned why they should hire a valuation expert. If not, then at least somebody who can internally prepare a financial planning, you know, can do a forecasting. And post that, if the forecasting, as I mentioned, is if the story and the numbers are going well, the point is that the negotiation with the investors will be very minimalistic. Of course, there are a lot of other points which I will cover, because it's not just the numbers that the investors are looking at. They're looking at a lot of other points, but we'll take that later. But if your valuation or your financial model is strong enough, I believe most of the investors are ready to invest and willing to negotiate almost negligible, because your foundation is strong. And of course, when the investor do their due diligence, when they know that there is a good strategic planning involved, they are ensuring, they are sure that you are okay to invest, and this is a profitable and sustainable business, right? Now, talking about, of course, then there is a successful fundraise if everything goes well. But can we move on to the next slide? Now, what are the outcomes of this? If we have the, proper planning done, proper valuation done, you will have a fair value determined. Whether you pitch or whether you want to even, ask your family member to invest. For example, suppose you have, forget of this example, but if suppose you are already working on a company which is bootstrapped, and now you want to, kind of raise funds, maybe, just need like 20 lakh rupees, just, very basic example, and you know that somebody is willing to, put that money in your company, but would you want to go with entire this valuation exercise or no? That is something, I'm asking you as a question. According to you, would you want to have a valuation done at that point in time, or you would want to delay that, that kind of a situation? Anybody would want to answer this question? What should you do at that point in time? Somebody is willing to invest 20 lakh rupees in your company, and you feel that this is okay for anyone to invest in your company. But whether you should seek a valuation report at that point in time, or because the investor is not demanding it. He is okay to invest the money.
You should seek.
But why should you seek? I don't think most of us would do that.
Because anyway, the valuation that whatever we company the value, they do not agree in the future terms. So it might be the clash between the investor and the company founder making.
So recently this had happened in our case. One of the companies started pitching their family member for 20 lakh rupees. Just as example. and after getting the valuation report, the company dropped seeking the investment from them because they found out the real potential the company had. Instead of taking, and 20 lakh rupees was not the amount they could have sustained for even 6 months, because the potential was there in the business, and then they realized eventually that okay, if we raise, instead of 20 lakh we raise 50 lakh, this could be the expansion plan, this could be the scenario that we could, it was very different from what we were thinking. So that is the kind of change happens कि आपको पता चलता है 20 लाख से कुछ नहीं होगा, 50 लाख डाला तो मैं बहुत कुछ कर सकता हूँ, something of that sort. Third point is, of course, the strategic planning, which I have already mentioned. This helps you to know your SWOT analysis. At what point your company is having a good strength as compared to your peers, as compared to your competitors. See, getting new ideas is of course a very good approach, but we all know that कोई ना कोई competitor तो मिल ही जाएगा market में, at whatever idea you are working on. Okay, so now getting that peer analysis done, or somebody who's already in the market is very important. If you know your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats, it always helps you to have a cutting edge when it is compared with your peers. Then, of course, the conclusion, you can just read if you want to, but we could, I think, because we want to move faster, I'll ask you, before we go to this slide, next slide, I would want you to know what are the mistakes again, and what the valuer does. Now, why you need a valuation report? सबके लिए तो ये compliance checklist है. This is something we all know. People think valuation report आएगा, हम compliance के लिए ले लेंगे, but I've already told you the importance of it. Right? आप आ जाओगे मेरे पास valuation के लिए report comply करके मैं दे दूँगी, but उसमें क्या होगा? आपने जो number investor के साथ agree किया, आपने agree किया, और आपने एक report ले ली और आपका valuation sign हो गया. But what about if you feel at later stage, you would have had a better investor, maybe your negotiation power would be more strong when you would have tried to seek this valuation report before closing the round. That is the typical question I want to throw. कि आप report लेते हो, तब ये सोच के लिया करो कि उसने आपका जो financial planning use किया है. Don't just take the valuation report in your hand from the valuer. Just कि आपका एक number arrive हो गया. Please. Whoever you use, I'm not telling you it could be me. We always, at least in our case, we ensure that you're working on the financial model. We know what the next 5 years, we always have a call with the founder saying that